Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Haunted America. On today's episode, we have two Reddit ghost stories to read for you guys. One is called My Ghost Story, and the other,
This is a story my grandpa swore was true.
you couldn't have said it more spooky or something?
It was as spooky as it gets.
Let's just jump right into it. Before we get into the show, if you guys could just take a minute to review and rate the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, we'd truly appreciate it. We're listened to in over like 56 or 54 or something countries, with thousands of listeners. And it'd just be nice to get more reviews and get the podcast pushed out to more people. It truly does help us, so we'd appreciate it. Let's get right into the first story.
This is a story my grandpa swore was true, sent in by Bonnie Parker, 1964. When my grandpa was a young man, he worked for the railroad. He made good money, and being he wasn't married yet, he had a nice car for that time, and on the weekends, he liked to go out with his friends. He was headed back on a Friday and was running late to a dance that night, so he took a shortcut on a pretty curvy road. The sun was setting, and he was headed west, and when he broke up over a hill, he was speeding and suddenly, in the last second, could just make out that someone was standing in the road. He swerved to miss the person, went off the road, down into a ravine, and slammed into a tree. He must have passed out because the next thing he remembered was hearing the voice of a young man saying, Mister, are you all right?
Okay, pause really quick. Mister, isn't that like from Mr. Deeds or some Adam Sandler movie? Yeah, Mister. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but that's how they used to talk back then, too.
All right. Grandpa said his head was splitting and his knee felt like it was on fire, but he was alive. The kid helped him out of the car and gathered up Grandpa's duffel bag and helped him up the bank and sat him on the ground near the road. He could see an old house nearby, and Grandpa asked the kid if it was his house. The kid answered, yeah, it was. And then Grandpa noticed that the boy had a hair lip.
Yeah. It's like a little deformity up here in your upper
Oh,
lip,
okay.
usually.
A hair lip and spoke with a strong lisp. I guess I should have finished reading that before Okay. He was a pudgy boy, pale and red-headed. He looked friendly enough. And when Grandpa asked him if he had a phone at his house, the boy shook his head and said no phone. Grandpa asked if his folks were home, and he said nope. And he said he didn't know when they'd be back. Grandpa then asked how far to the nearest neighbor, and the boy said it was the last place he'd passed with the long white fence in front. Grandpa thought back and figured it had to have been 6 miles or so. Jeez, Grandpa was out there in the boonies. The boy said, you can come to my
To my house?
You can come to my house.
All right.
So the boy helped Grandpa limp up the long driveway up to the old rundown house. The house was cold, even though it was a warm June evening, and Grandpa could see there was no central heating or even a wood stove, but there was a large fireplace and hearth in the kitchen. What is hearth?
A hearth.
I'm
like
so uneducated. What is a hearth? Drop a comment if you're reading. If you're reading on Spotify, leave a comment. Somebody tell us what a hearth is.
I should know that too, but I can't think of it right now. Where is it? What Grandpa asked?
Yep.
Grandpa asked if the house was always so cold, and the boy said, I'm always cold.
I'm always cold.
Yeah, all is cold, okay. Grandpa said, if you go get some wood, I'll start a fire. The boy came back with a big armload of wood, so Grandpa started a fire, and the wood was pretty dry, so in no time there was a big fire going. The boy stood so close to it, rubbing his arms, soaking up the heat, that Grandpa said to him, you better be careful, buddy. You're going to get burned. The boy only repeated, I'm always cold. Grandpa asked. It says Grandma.
Yeah, but it's gotta be a typo.
Yeah, I thought we were going back home to Grandma. All right. Grandpa asked the boy if he was hungry because he had some sandwiches in his bag. But the boy said he'd already had his supper. This really is bad. I can't remember when they said how how long ago this was, but yeah.
I don't think he did say.
I don't remember people saying supper for a while. I used to. Grandpa ate his sandwich while the boy still stood in front of the fire, too close for Grandpa's comfort, but he didn't say anything more. He looked around the house and it seemed like there hadn't been anyone there for a long time. It started getting dark and the boy turned from the fire and said, "You can sleep in my bed. I'll keep the fire going."
The wording.
The spelling in this it's not bad. It's just
I think they're trying to.
They're doing a good job.
Of saying how the boy would say it.
Yep. And Grandpa says, "I don't want to put you out of your bed. And are you sure none of your neighbors won't be passing by? Maybe he could get help with his car." The boy said, "Nobody ever comes up this far. They're scared of ghosts."
Just for you guys, I know this sounds silly and we're, it's supposed to be a horror podcast, whatever. They spelt that SKEERD of the ghosts. They're scared of the ghosts.
That got me.
Grandpa said that shook him up a bit and said, "What ghosts?" The boy replied, "Everyone says there's ghosts here, but I've never seen them. The only thing I'm scared of is my nightmares." Grandpa said, "You have nightmares?" The boy said, "Yep, every night, same dream. A giant hog chases me and tries to eat me, but I wake up." Grandpa asked him, "Do you ever get chased by a pig in real life?" And the boy said, "Yeah." He had picked up a sow's baby by its leg and shook it so that it was squealing, and the pig chased him and knocked him down. And he got bit up by the sow pretty bad. And for those that don't know, a sow is just a female pig. Grandpa said, "Well, that's probably why you have nightmares." The boy just nodded his head. Grandpa said he was getting pretty tired and was hurting pretty badly and said thank you for letting him sleep on his bed, which was over in the corner of the room near the fireplace. The boy said he'd keep the fire going and watch over Grandpa while he slept. Grandpa said he woke up with a start from the dream he had. He had the same dream the boy had told him about, a huge sow chasing him, and when he woke up as the sow was about to attack him, the boy was still sitting there in front of the fireplace. There were only coals left and the sun was coming up. Grandpa limped outside to go pee off the porch, okay, and said he could hear a tractor in the distance. He limped over to the field and waved his arms until the farmer saw him. He sat and waited because the farmer was a good distance away. He asked the farmer if he could pull his car out of the ravine, and the farmer said yes, and asked if Grandpa was all right. He told him yeah, he was fine, and Grandpa rolled on the wheel well of the tractor till they got to the place where he went off the road.
The farmer asked, kind of in astonishment, him, "When did you run off the road?" Grandpa said, "Last night, just before sunset." The farmer replied, "Where did you spend the night?" Grandpa told him the story about the boy in the road and how he slept there last night. The farmer's face went white and said, "You slept there?" And Grandpa said, "Yeah, why?" The farmer said, "I'd heard the place was haunted, but I never believed it."
Creepy.
And Grandpa said, "Well, the boy said everyone said they thought ghosts lived in that house." The farmer looked right at Grandpa and said, "I guess they do." That boy was killed by the family sow over a year ago. The farmer said the family all moved down south right after the funeral. They were so overcome with grief, they couldn't stand living there in that house another day. It's been empty ever since.
Jeez Louise. What a story your grandpa had for you. First of all, okay, so obviously this wasn't South enough, but the accent this person typed in was South enough. So it sounds like Grandpa encountered a passed on boy who was killed by the sow that he had dreams of. That's just a lot to unravel in that one story.
Just the fact that, okay, he interacted with this kid all night long, and it was a ghost.
That's a pretty powerful spirit.
I mean, we've
had
had
a lot of energy, so and the fact the spirit. Oh, okay, wait a minute. The spirit went and got the wood for the grandpa to start the fire,
right?
And did or did not keep the fire going, because he said when the grandpa woke up, there were just coals left. So the kid could bring the firewood, but couldn't keep the fire going.
This is one powerful ghost.
Or
And-
Grandpa was knocked out on the side of the road all night,
Yeah, I think maybe Grandpa might have been
concussed.
exaggerating just a bit, but it's a good story.
It's a good story nonetheless. Yeah, there's just a lot to uncover in that, and how do you explain that the spirit could carry crap
Yeah,
perfectly fine and interact with your dad or with your grandpa all night long?
When he woke up in the morning, was the kid still there?
Yeah, he said the kid was still there sitting next to the fire.
Until he went and talked to the farmer.
Yeah. Huh. And the boy was killed by the sow that he had dreams about.
It goes back and forth with grandma, grandpa, like the whole story. But I think grandpa might have been exaggerating a little bit, but it's still a good story.
Let's just get on to the next story. You guys leave a comment of what you think of that story down below if you're listening on Spotify.
Yeah.
Or email us, hauntedamericapodcast@gmail.com. I haven't been plugging that. I didn't plug that on the last episode either.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys want to send in a story for us to read out loud on the podcast, email us, hauntedamericapodcast@gmail.com. And you can be on the next episode of America's Encounters, which was the last episode. Let's get into the next story. This one is called My Ghost Story, sent in by WOG28 or 3827. So this happened to me years ago now, and I use quotations. Okay, so it's my quotation ghost quotation story. This happened to me years ago now, and I use quotations because I could be wrong, and it wasn't paranormal, but I think it was. I'm downtown doing a fire watch in an old building as a security officer, graveyard shift. The building is 5 stories, not including the basement. 5th floor was a culinary institute, 4th and 3rd floor were offices, 2nd floor was used as a storage for the culinary school. Only way onto the 2nd floor is via the stairwell, so a key, or the elevators with a code. I had just come down the stairs on the back side of the building onto the 2nd floor. It was about 3:30. And I had to run into 2 Hispanic cleaners on the 5th floor about 20 minutes before. As I'm walking down the hall on the 2nd floor and it's dark, mind you, but I have the streetlights outside giving me a bit of light. I hear up ahead of me on the mezzanine what sounds like 2 ladies talking. Oh, the cleaners must be finished on the 5th floor. But the wording on this is so bad. But I stew, I'm guessing that means stop. But I stopped and really try and listen. The voices sound like they're up here on the 2nd floor, and they don't sound like the Hispanic cleaners from earlier.
As I approach where I think the voices are coming from, they stop. I get to the mezzanine, nobody there. I look to the 1st floor, and nobody there either. I decide to check the bathrooms. As I pass where I thought they were, I could smell perfume. Nobody's in the bathrooms. They didn't use the elevators, I would have heard it ding. And they didn't use the stairs as I would hear them running down and the door slam. Not sure what it was. I could be mistaken, but the perfume smell, nothing was up there to make that smell. No Glade plug-in, etc. Never found out what it was.
What was this building before it was a culinary institute, storage, and office space? Is it like an old hospital that was, transformed into this kind of building? We need more insight on what this building was, because if it was a hospital,
yeah.
who knows how many people passed away in that place, or it could just be a random ghost letting you know that they're there,
or it could be residual, where you just hear the conversations and you smell the perfume. I've had that happen personally.
Very interesting little story, though, and I would like to hear more about this place. WOG 3827. So if you're listening to this, maybe email us or put in another story so we can hear more about this place. Have you had any other interactions at this place? He said this happened years ago.
Yeah.
So he used quotations because he thinks that it's paranormal, but he isn't for sure, I guess.
I mean, I guess the cleaners could have gotten out
Were-
of the building without him noticing, I suppose.
Were you hearing people outside by chance? That
Like-
doesn't explain the perfume, but that might
Right.
explain the people talking that you heard. You were on the second floor, so that's not too far away from, the ground, the
Yeah.
sidewalk outside, parking lot, whatever.
Yeah.
You just got to think about these things. Try to debunk it yourself. And if there's no reasonable explanation as to what it could have been, it might have been paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's what I was going to say.
Let's end the
Those-
episode. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of
Haunted America.
If you guys would like a story read out loud on the podcast and have a chance to be featured in the next episode of America's Encounters, email us at hauntedamericapodcast@gmail.com. And whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we'd appreciate it if you would take the time to rate and review the show. That way it helps push this podcast, this silly ghost podcast, out to many more thousands of people. That's about it.
Let's go. Yeah.
We'll see you guys on the next episode of
Haunted America.
Dun Dun Dun.